stocks and help you pick the right stock at the right time.
Good morning, you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first live streaming digital news service. I am Jayesh Khilnani and I have Agam Vakil on the show with me for the FNO Space Cues. But let's have a look at what the trade setup looks like and the handover from the US market. So the Dow Jones in fact closed about lower for the fourth consecutive session. However, the European indices actually managed to gain for themselves. Now, if you have a look at the Asian indices, we have positive cues coming in from most of them. So the Nikkei is trading about 0.5% positive and the Hang Seng too is about 0.5% positive. The Chinese market in fact has surged more than 1%. However, this is not the case with the SGX Nifty, which is actually suggesting a 40-point downtick for ourselves and an open which will be closer to 10,550. But let's have a look at the ADRs also, how they performed. Well, they closed largely lower, led by Vedanta, which was down more than 3%, followed by HDFC Bank and Wipro, which also closed more than 1% in the negative. And we had ICICI Bank also closing lower. There was only one ADR which actually managed to gain, and that was Infosys. Now, as far as the commodity space is concerned, now looking at the oil markets, if you look at that one, the oil markets are actually trading at a 3-year high and currently about 0.3% in the green. So the WTI is trading just below the 69 per barrel mark, and Brent is trading just shy of the 75 mark. However, big cues came in from the base metal space. Now, if you have a look at the base metal space, aluminium, which declined about 7% and saw the biggest decline since 2010. So we had aluminium which closed lower, and we had nickel and tin which also managed to close about more than 3% negative. Now, if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, base metals are in fact trading mixed, with aluminium down about 3.5%, and we have the Shanghai Steel, which is about 1.5% positive. As far as gold prices are concerned, we have seen gold prices recover from the 2-week low and currently trading about the 1326 mark. As far as the fund flows are concerned, if you have a look at what we got in terms of the domestic institutions and the foreigners, so foreign investment actually they sold more than 250 crores, while the domestic institutions bought nearly 400 crores. But for the month itself, the trend continues. FIs have sold more than 4,000 crores worth of equity, while the DIs have bought nearly 6,000 crores worth of equity. In terms of the key indices that we had, though the Nifty managed to close about 20 points positive, but it was actually a last hour slump that we witnessed for the Nifty itself. We had a sharp fall from the day's high. So the mid-cap index and the small-cap index also managed to close positive, about 0.2% in the green. As far as the sector gainers are concerned, we had the Nifty Realty Index that surged more than 1.5%, while we had the Nifty Pharma, which also closed about 1.5% in the green. As far as the losers were concerned, the Nifty Metal Index, now this will be the focus point of today. Yesterday too, it was the biggest loser in trade, closed down about 0.8%, and given what global cues are indicating, we can expect further downside for the Nifty Metal and the stocks within that. Now, if you look at the VIX index, that actually snapped its 2-day losing streak and ended about 1.6% positive. As far as the contribution is concerned, the gainers largely were IndusInd Bank, Reliance, M&M and Kotak Mahindra Bank, while on the losing side we had HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank and India Bulls Housing Finance. But with that, Agam, what can we expect from the FNO space?
Well, we've started looking at the rollovers coming in, albeit amid a lot of consolidation in the benchmark indices. So, as you can see, a very little change in open interest for the Nifty, or for that matter, the Bank Nifty futures, where there has really not been too much of a change. Coming down to rollovers, well, as far as the Nifty is concerned, a little less than 18%, and for the Nifty Bank futures, while standing at around 13.5%, we're still expecting this number to pick up as we move into the next couple of sessions. When it comes to the WIX, no change once again, still below the mark of 14, in fact now edging towards 13, and we've also seen very little change in the Nifty put call ratio at around 1.63. In terms of changes in open interest across the different strikes, we're looking at the most activity in the 10,600 put, where there has been a little more writing coming along and a lot of unwinding in the 10,500 and 600 calls. Reliance Communication moves out of the F&O band, so that will remain in focus. We're looking at a substantial amount of shorts building in Cholamandalam Finance, as well as something like an NIT Technologies, which continues to go from strength to strength. But that's as far as our own markets are concerned. Let's now go across to Bloomberg's Paul Allen for the top global headlines.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee has voted in favor of Mike Pompeo being the next Secretary of State. He's now expected to win the approval of the full Senate later this week and replace Rex Tillerson. Senator Rand Paul dropped his opposition after pressure from fellow Republicans and the White House to ensure Pompeo wasn't the first Secretary of State nominee to be rejected since at least 1925. Alphabet shares gave up gains in late trading after first quarter profit and revenue beat estimates. Google's parent delivered earnings per share of $13.33, well above forecasts of $9.30. The revenue, which includes hardware, cloud and app sales, jumped 40% on the year. Capital expenditures more than tripled, mainly due to the $2.4 billion purchase of Chelsea Market offices in New York. Facebook says it's removed more content from terror groups such as Islamic State and Al-Qaeda by actively looking for it. Human and computer review systems have been retrained to seek out hate posts, and action was taken against almost 2 million pieces of content in the first 3 months of the year. Facebook says about 99% of that was flagged by its internal procedures and not reported by users. 10 people were killed and at least 16 more injured after a van crashed into pedestrians in northern Toronto. Police say the driver has been arrested, but it's too early to speculate on a motive. Witnesses say the van jumped the curb at a busy intersection and hit a group of people before driving away. The incident happened as G7 ministers gathered in Toronto ahead of their leaders' meeting in Quebec City in June. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
Well, it's pretty limited right now because when we think about the ability to physically increase supplies out of the Permian right now, you're constrained by pipe capacity as well as pressure pumping oil service capacity. Right. The most recent numbers are roughly 1.1, maybe 1.2 million barrel per day growth, and getting higher than that's going to be difficult. The other avenue would be the SPR. That requires congressional approval, and typically it's used under emergency situations, and I wouldn't call this an emergency situation.
So you have a price target on Brent of about $82 a barrel, I think you said.
$82.50.
$82.50 for June. When I left the office this morning, it was at $74 a barrel. Is it time to lift that price target?
Well, let's go over what drives that price target. Driving that is the underlying demand environment. Look at the high prices in oil are also high prices in metals. Yes, there's a lot of focus on geopolitics right now, but global demand growth is absolutely stellar, particularly given where we are in the business cycle. We're a late economic business cycle, and that's typically associated with strong commodity demand, hence why metals and energy are hitting multi-year highs.
All right, strong demand for oil, but is there a risk that the higher price starts to eat into that demand?
Actually, what we find, it actually works the other way around, meaning that you'd have to get to really high prices from here before you start to see it damage demand. And the reason why that happens is that what we see going back over the last 15 plus years is that higher oil prices lead to creation of global excess savings in places like right here in Abu Dhabi. That global petrodollars that then get lent out that stimulate demand growth. The point I like to say is let's go back to 2000. Every macroeconomist told us if oil prices prices go above $40 a barrel, global economy is dead. What happened? They hit 50, 75, 100, global growth accelerated. We go back to 2015. Economists told, look for the tailwind to lower oil prices. What happened? Global growth really slowed. We go back up to 70, and hey, financial conditions were the best we've ever seen in first quarter of this year.
So is there any risk to the oil price at the moment then?
I think a couple areas that I would argue is a substantial risk. One is a slowdown in the underlying economic environment. There are signs, concerns in China right now, and you take the macro data, they have slowed. Our current activity indicator out there has slowed from roughly a peak of 5.5 earlier this year to roughly around 4.7. That's not worrisome, but if the trend continued, we would take that strong global demand growth that is excess of 2 million barrels per day year over year and start to ease up on it. So that would be my big concern. So
I'm sure Donald Trump would like to know what you think OPEC's appetite is for over-tightening the market.
Well, in terms of thinking about the current environment, they don't have a lot of competition coming from the oil patch in the U.S. As I said before, they're constrained physically, but they're also constrained financially. We look at their financial metrics, they have to improve. The industry needs to restructure. In fact, I heard a good one the other day is, how many CEOs does it take to drill a well in the United States? The answer is 600 right now. The industry needs restructuring, and so the financial metrics need to improve in the sector.
Stock of the day is GNFC, solid set of numbers reported by the company. If you look at the top line growth, we're looking at a 46% rise to a number of 1,764 crore as compared to nearly 1,200 crore that we've seen in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. If you look at the profitability, it's a modest growth there relatively to your EBIT growth, a number of 38% year on year to a number of 329 crore. Also, if you look at the EBITDA, that's almost shot up, almost jumped by 16.5 times year on year basis for this company to a number of 471 crore as compared to nearly 29 crore that we've seen in the corresponding quarter. Margins have expanded to 27% as compared to 2% that we have seen, 2.4% that we have seen in the corresponding quarter. So what has led to a good show on the operational performance, cost saving techniques and the top line growth. Now also your power and fuel expenses, that as a percent to your net sales has nearly halved to a number of around 13.8 from 26.2 earlier. Also, other expenses as a percent to your net sales have come down to 7.3% from nearly 13% that we've seen in the corresponding quarter. Finance cost for this company too has come down 66%, given that the company has repaid all its debt and now is a debt-free company. Exceptional gain in the base quarter, however, has led to a modest growth in the profitability figure of this quarter. If you look at the segmental breakup, the revenue breakup, you would see fertilizer segment, which contributes to nearly 27% of your overall sales. That has shot up by 50%. Chemical, which occupies nearly 70% of your overall sales, that has risen by 36% on year-on-year basis for this company. And if you look at the EBIT breakup, fertilizer segment, the losses for that segment have narrowed down substantially. Chemical business, in fact, has contributed to a good which has grown at 70% for this company, contributing to more than 100% in that case towards the EBIT performance and also leading to a good show that we've seen for this company.
Let's now get you a check on the commodity space, starting off with the base metals, which had the most cues over there. So the index itself declined most since about December 2017 and declined more than 2.5% in trade. Now this was largely led by the aluminium plunge that we saw on account of a signal that there might be relief for the sanctions imposed on company Rusal. Backed by this, aluminium did actually decline 7% and the most since 2010. Now what actually happened was that the aluminium equities also declined on account of this. As far as other base metals are concerned, we had nickel and tin, which declined more than 3% in trade. The other metal that needs to be in focus is the Dalian iron ore exchange iron ore prices. So that has actually advanced for a fourth consecutive day on the back of a recovery in the steel demand. And if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, the Shanghai steel prices are trading about 1.5% higher, with aluminium declining more than 3% in trade. Shifting focus to the oil prices, we have seen that WTI is currently trading higher for the third consecutive session, and actually overnight managed to close at a 3-year high despite falling as much as 1.8% overnight. Now this is on the back of the Saudi-Yemen conflict that has actually escalated. However, the metal decline that we saw for itself actually diverted from the Middle East tensions on the oil market. So wait and watch how the oil markets actually react. As far as the precious metals are concerned, gold futures actually managed to close near a 2-week low around the 13.25 mark as the dollar advanced.
Well, among the stocks that we are tracking today is Thomas Cook, where the board has approved corporate restructuring. Now, Thomas Cook shareholders will get 1889 shares of Quess Corp for every 10,000 shares that they held in the company under this broad scheme of arrangement. This will also reduce the holding company discount for Quess Corp. So watch out for both those companies, Thomas Cook and Quess Corp. That apart, you also have Music Broadcast, where they will acquire the radio business of Ananda Offset on a slump sale share basis for about 35 crores, and this is to expand their presence in Kolkata. So watch out for that name as well. We're also tracking Gati, where they have said that the company will mull bringing in a new partner for future growth on their board meeting on 26th April. So we don't know if this is going to be a strategic partner or an investment that they're looking at, but we will continue to track this stock. Also, another smaller company, Astron Paper, they've signed a MOU with Balaram Papers to acquire its Gujarat plant. Details or financial details not known, but watch out for that name, as well as also for sugar companies, because you have a Bloomberg report which quotes the food minister saying that the government is considering sugarcane production subsidy and also imposing some cess on sugar sales. So watch out for some of these sugar companies. Also a couple of bulk deals, interesting bulk deals that we've seen. Minda Corp, where Ashish Kacholia bought 0.5% stake yesterday. The stock already reacted very sharply. Let's see if we see further reaction on the back of this name. There's also Simco, where Puranju Valiat's Equity Intelligence has sold 0.4% stake, so you could see some negative reaction there. And finally, we are also watching out for Astra Micro, where Ratnabali Investments had bought 5% stake. More importantly, the seller is Tarish Investment and Trading Company, which is the Azim Premji company. They have sold 3.6% stake, so again possible to see some reaction on that one as well.
Bharti Infratel came out with its numbers yesterday post-market. Now, the company's net profit jumped compared to the last quarter for the very first time in the last 3 quarters, aided by the higher other income. Now, if you see the headline numbers of Bharti Infratel, its revenue and EBITDA were literally flat at around 3,662 crore rupees and 1,606 crore rupees, while EBITDA margins declined marginally to 43.8%. However, the company's net profit increased by 3.6% to 606 crore rupees. Now, the tenancy ratio, which is the number of operators antenna on one tower, stood around 2.3 times versus 2.38 times in the last quarter. Now, if you see on the operational side, it was the higher energy margins that aided the company's financials in the 4th quarter of financial year 2018. Energy margins stood at around 11%, that was the highest in the last 12 quarters. And it was the 93% jump in other income, which also aided the company's bottom line. However, the company booked an exceptional loss of close to 50 crore rupees related to the write-offs of recoverable dues from Aircel, which to some extent weighed on the company's financials in the 4th quarter of financial year 2018. Now, like what happened in Q3, Q4 also saw a tenancy loss for Bharti Infratel. Close to 9,800 tenants exited from Bharti Infratel's tower. However, of them, close to 2,500 continued to pay in the 4th quarter of financial year 2018. The company also declared a dividend per share of 14 rupees, which means the dividend payout remained again above the 100% level. Lastly, any update on acquisition of Idea and Vodafone's stake in Endastars and management commentary on further tenancy outlook, tenancy growth will be key thing to watch out for in Bharti Infratel's conference call, which is scheduled today.
IBC is a new law, that's why I think it may take some time by the time these issues get resolved or get settled. But there are contradictory judgments which are coming in. Even in the case of Binani Cement, if you see, Supreme Court refused to intervene in the case of Ultratech. At the same time, in the case of Bhushan Power and Steel, NCLT saying that Liberty House, which has submitted the bid late, even that should be considered. Because the objective of the IBC court is to maximize the value to the creditors. So there are some conflicting judgments which are coming in. So therefore the process may take a little longer than what we are all anticipating. There is a quick solution, resolution for all these accounts. The way the litigations are coming, and finally I think it will be resolved only in the Supreme Court by settling this law.
But you don't think structurally this is hurting the insolvency process when you allow bids to come in after a deadline, or you allow people to revise their bids even after the deadline or the process is coming to a close? You know, which bidder, and you know, this is not the only time you will bid in these processes. Which bidder will then come to the table with its best bid in the first round, right? They will say, oh, look, let me hold on to some little bit of value because, you know, even after the bid deadline, I might have a chance.
Yeah, that's why I think even the process, when you compare after it started, there is a change that the highest bidder only will be picked up for negotiation by the lenders. Now, the way it is evolving today, until the resolution plan is approved, anybody can submit a fresh bid, which could be superior to the other bids which are under negotiation. Even that is permitted in the case of Bhushan Power and Steel. So if that is the way it should be done, I think the way iron ore mining auctions or coal auctions are happening electronically, maybe that may be a better way of settling finally the bidding process, even in the IBC cases. That's why there are some judgments which are not on expected lines. Whatever set procedure that has been laid down by resolution professional and the COC, Creditors Committee. So that will finally be approved by the NCLT, what everybody thought. But the judgments are coming contrary to that view. So that's why I think it will take some time by the time it gets settled.
You don't think it's best if they did move to, like you pointed out, an electronic bidding system, have 5 rounds, you know, or as Ultratech said in open court in NCLT the other day, that why don't you have bidding in open court, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe that is finally the way to resolve the issue. Otherwise, anybody can come even the last minute and submit the bid and then say that his bid is superior. So that will delay the whole process, and then we don't know what is finally going to happen. There is a lot of uncertainty creeping in. I think it is getting evolved. Maybe we have to be patient for some more time.
Bharti Airtel will be reporting its fourth quarter results today. Now, the fourth quarter of financial year 2018 is expected to be another weak quarter for Bharti Airtel. Revenue and EBITDA are expected to fall compared to the last quarter. Revenue is expected to fall by around 2% to close to 19,800 crore rupees, and this will be the third consecutive fall for Bharti Airtel when it comes to the top line. EBITDA is expected to be down by close to 7% to 7,000 crore rupees, and this will be the lowest EBITDA number reported by Bharti Airtel in the last 17 quarters. Now, margins are expected to decline by 17%, while the company is expected to report its first loss on a consolidated basis in the last 60 quarters. Now, the company's ARPU, that is average revenue per user, is expected to decline for the 7th consecutive quarter to close to 115 rupees per user. So what led to such quarter? Well, it was the tariff cuts by Reliance Jio, cut in international termination rates, and ARPU downtrading. Now, in the fourth quarter, Jio had revised its tariff downward twice. Along with that, the international termination rates were cut by around 43% to 30 paise per minute, while subscribers continue to choose lower ARPU plans, which led to ARPU downtrading in the fourth quarter of financial year 2018. Now, for Bharti Airtel, its Africa operation, which has been aiding the company's financials in the last few quarters, is again expected to report healthy set of numbers despite a seasonally weak quarter in Africa, while data consumption, which is a key theme now, is expected to increase for the company in the fourth quarter of financial year 2018. Now, key things to watch out for would include management commentary on capex plan funding and also on leverage. Also, management commentary on further stake sale in Bharti Infratel and its DTH business will be a key thing to watch out for in this earnings.
The design of this shoe starts in Oregon in 1981 and with a man called Tinker Hatfield. He was an architect for Nike, hired to draw up offices and showrooms on the company's campus. After making a statement on the outside of the buildings, he was asked to join the designers on the inside. In a race to develop sneakers, a former NASA engineer had recently introduced the idea of sealing air bubbles in the soles for extra comfort and performance. But competition was fierce, and Nike still needed an edge. Hatfield headed to Paris in search of inspiration. While he was there, he visited the Pompidou Center, a radical building famous for its inside-out design, which exposed the building's components, like escalators and heating pipes, for everyone to see. Hatfield Hatfield decided to apply the same principle to his own design, revealing the inner workings of his shoe by making the air cushioning system visible. The marketing team thought the air bubble would seem like a weakness, but the Nike Air Max 1 was an instant hit when it launched in 1987. Originally, pairs sold for $75. Now they go for double that. Today, Tinker Hatfield is one of the most successful shoe designers in the world. He even created those legendary self-lacing sneakers of Back to the Future fame. Stylish and innovative, this is the design that stayed one step ahead, simply by being turned inside out.
Well, I'd like self-tying shoes. You'll find that and a lot more on the website bloombergquint.com. Here are just a couple of stories. The Congress will move the Supreme Court to challenge an order by Vice President Venkaiah Naidu that rejected an impeachment notice filed by opposition parties against Chief Justice of India Deepak Misra. The US softened its positions on sanctions against Russian metals giant United Co. Rusal. For the first time, US Treasury discussed a path for lifting the sanctions on Rusal, saying it would provide relief if Oleg Deripaska relinquished control. It also extended the deadline for companies to wind down dealings with the Russian aluminium producer by almost 5 months. Aluminium prices subsequently fell by as much as 9.4%, the most ever. Well, that's all you need to know going into trade today. Up next is Indian Open, and we'll take you through Market Open. Thanks so much for watching. This is Bloomberg Quint.